You can start, Sanjiv. We are live now.
Thank you. Thanks, Ira. Welcome to my show, Confessions of a Futurist with Sanjiv Goyal. Every Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. only on Radio Zindagi. We invite mavericks and futurists to share their secrets, yes, secrets, and predictions of the future. Let's talk to our next guest, Ashu Garg. He is making entrepreneurs' dreams a reality. He is a partner in Foundation Capital. He serves on the board of Cohesity, Convia, Eightfold, Turing, and many other companies. He is IIT Delhi alum, as well as I am. Ashu, welcome to our show.
Thank you, Sanjeev, for having me. It's a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
So, Ashu, we have gathered some stat. Startups have closed 2020 stronger than last year, 2019. Almost $300 billion has been invested. The growth came from industries disrupted by global pandemic. Work, healthcare, education, finance, shopping, and entertainment. And I just read a news where VCs has invested nearly 35 billions in startups, minting 22 new unicorns. Why? So let's talk to Ashu about the future and learn his secret. So before we go to our big question, Ashu, do you have a confession for our audience?
You know, I am a sucker for rom-com, romantic comedies. I cry all the time in the movies. I actually cry whenever the Indian national anthem is played. So I'm generally a sucker for anything sobby and emotional.
Uh-oh. All right. Thank you. So coming back to our question for today, what is really happening in the industry?
So, Sanjeev, you know, at some level, when you take a compressed period of time, the last few years, the explosion in venture seems like, you know, it's a really big deal. And people are saying, is there too much money going into venture? Is there too many startups being funded? But when you zoom out and take a broader look, venture is still a very small part of the overall economy and the overall sort of financial asset classes. It's less than 1% of all investing in a year, a fraction of a percent. So I think there's lots of room to grow. I think venture could be 10x bigger than it is today in the next decade. Now, why is that? What's driving that? I think what's driving that is the share of technology in the overall economy globally is increasing dramatically. Software is truly eating the world. I mean, that is a true statement. We see it in our personal lives. We see it in the lives of corporations. And that will continue to happen for the next decade. And I think technology will continue to eat greater share of the economy. So I think we're just getting started.
Wow, that's impressive. So fun fact for our audience, coincidentally, both of us grew up in a small town called Meerut in India.
Yeah.
But not many people may know that we have a lot of sugar mills where we make sugar. So both of us are addicted to sugar, and we are trying to figure it out how to get the hell out of that. So it's an interesting fact.
You know, and you know, I always joke that in my family, you know, we all grew up eating sugar. It was sort of, you know, if you're come from an Indian, you know, if I may use the word Bania family, it's kind of just part of your genes.
True, so true. And it's a fascinating, but one thing I find, Ashu, we are trying to solve this problem of health. And now food innovation is becoming a big thing. Do you see deals? Because I haven't seen many deals in the market around food innovation.
So I think the challenge for healthcare broadly
Mhm.
and for food innovation specifically, is that the venture model is not a great fit for either. And it works. In the case of healthcare, people have found ways to make it work for large parts, not all of healthcare, large parts of healthcare. In food innovation, it's been much harder. This the venture model works when you can get very high margin products with a high degree of defensibility for sustained periods of time. That's inherent in the venture model. If you look at what's been successful, and you're starting to see a couple of companies, Impossible Foods is a great example, that have used the venture model to build great businesses, but they're more the exception to the rule.
True.
And I think food innovation, frankly, will come more from incumbents than venture funded companies. But I think we'll see a bit of both.
Bit of both. Right. So let's talk about the current market situation. And we both come from tech world, and majority of our audience are from Silicon Valley. So where do you see our future is going?
I think if you think of the world of technology, we're just getting started.
Mm-hmm.
Technology as an industry is 50 years old. The vast majority of innovation in technology has happened in the last 2 decades.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I look out at least for the next decade or two, I see the pace of innovation accelerating, not slowing down. What does that mean? If you look at it from a corporate standpoint, every large company in the world still has very archaic and broken business processes. Way too many people in every company spend way too much time doing manual tasks that should be done by machines. And those are both white collar tasks and blue collar tasks. Literally, if you think about the amount of time people spend in back offices cutting and pasting data from one screen to another, from one system to another, it's insane. In automation of manual tasks will liberate human beings to focus their energy on things that add value.
Completely agree.
I think that's a massive innovation trend. If you look at our personal lives, video conferencing is still very primitive.
Yeah.
It has a decade to go before it's going to be usable in our day-to-day lives in a way that we want it to be. You look at sort of the Tesla car. I mean, that's hardly self-driving. But over the next decade, we will have self-driving cars.
Yeah.
So every aspect of our life is going to be reinvented with technology.
So I have a question on that from you. See, we are all hearing these different technologies, and you and me have seen evolution of Silicon Valley. You came a little earlier than me, but more than 2 decades. So we saw how companies like even Google and Amazon started as a startup and grew and become such a huge organizations. And we used to always talk about it as the time has changed. Now they are not going to be big organization, big corporation. It hasn't changed. Every 30 year, 40 year, we change the type of industry, but it comes back to the same big giants, and where we aggregate everything. And on the other note, we are talking about blockchain, crypto, where we talk about decentralized infrastructure. We talk about how do we create more of a distributed architecture where we don't have dependency on one server in a way. We are talking about serverless, a lot of buzzwords people are using. And for our audience, can you think of a future where this dependency on one thing, like one server, one will be gone? Is quantum computing the answer, or something else is coming which can change our world?
So I think let's unpack what you said, because I do think there's a couple of different trends. I think we see with every wave of innovation, going back hundreds of years, you will see giants emerge. We saw giant steel companies emerge 100 years ago. 50 years ago, we saw giant telecom companies emerge. 25 years ago, we saw giant cable companies emerge. And now we're seeing giant companies in the search and the cloud space and so on in the last 10 to 20 years. I think the next wave of innovation will create its own giants. Inherent in any new technology, and this has been true for hundreds of years, is you see increasing returns to scale And so value accrues to the top 3 or 4 players. And that trend is only accentuated and accelerated in the internet era. But there will be new trends and new technologies. And I fully see new companies. If you look at Cohesity and the rate at which it's growing, I think Cohesity will become, the new Google for data management.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's going on. On the other hand, I do think the internet is also a phenomenal leveler. It's leveling capability and opportunity. Blockchain and decentralized approaches further accelerate, the leveling of the playing field. What that means is you will see the next Google could happen in Berlin, in Bombay, or Bangalore, or Perth. I don't know. But
why not Las Vegas?
Or Las Vegas. All of Las Vegas has been lots of exciting things. Bombay and Perth and Bangalore and Berlin a little less so. I think the world is becoming a level playing field for opportunity and talent.
Yeah. So Ashu, my concern and question is, we always talk, and our world changes every 20, 30 years. We talk about centralization, we talk about decentralization. We talk about centralization, we talk about decentralization. And that's going on for last, I would say 200-300 years, maybe more. The biggest invention in my understanding and my humble opinion is really fire and wheel. And after that, we have series of incremental innovations. And where we are going to put the man on Mars now, not even moon. That used to be a dream and when we were growing up in our way. So question is, where is the world going and how our audience can start preparing for that and can be part of it? So as a futurist, and I consider you futurist, we had a lot of conversation, especially in last 1 year. I do see that you have a knack for identifying where the future is going. So if you can talk a little bit more so our audience can understand, can they prepare for that? Should they pack their bag for the Mars or something else?
Sanjiv, that's very kind of you to say. The only thing that is certain when we talk about the future is we will be wrong. So, but with that caveat, I think the world is moving to a place where human beings will have much more freedom to move and live and work where they want. And that has lots of implications. It means cheaper, faster travel. It means better communication and collaboration technology. It means more flexible living and real estate environments. But the idea that, you can be a nomad and still live, the life that you and I living in the cities we live in the Bay Area or in Las Vegas, I think will become true in the next decade. I think secondly, in the grand scheme of things, human beings have only, really built an intimate knowledge of 2 or 3% of even our own planet. Our knowledge of large parts of the landmass, our knowledge of the oceans, our knowledge even of near terrestrial space is very limited.
True.
And I think you're going to see a tremendous change in the coming decade on that. I'm an optimist. I believe that we will solve the climate change problem.
Absolutely.
I believe technology created this problem and technology will solve the problem. And I think there'll be a lot of technical innovation that will solve climate change problems. And I think technology will solve the problems of resource constraints, whether it's constraints around metal, other elements. I think those problems will get solved through technology. So I'm an optimist, and I believe that the world today is dramatically better than it was 100 years ago. Not marginally better, dramatically better. And I think the world 100 years from now will be dramatically better for most people than it is today.
Yeah. See, the amount of population growth we had in the last 100 years, it's phenomenal the way we are able to manage the quality of life we have today. What world doesn't realize it, from 2 billion to 7 billion people. And we didn't even blink. Today, COVID happened. 12 months, yes, a lot of lives were gone, but we all collaborated because we have phenomenal technological infrastructure.
Absolutely. And the 7 billion people today have a better quality of life on an average than the 2 billion did 100 years ago.
Absolutely. And 300 years ago, we didn't even have potable water. That's why people were drinking beer and alcohol, if you know that story.
Mhm.
So coffee actually invented everything, which is interesting. We started drinking coffee and our world has changed. So something goes to caffeine. I'm not sure if our audience are caffeine drinker or not. But Rahul, you like wine. You're a big wine aficionado, right? So a little bit on personal side. Why don't you share with our audience what has worked for you? You has an amazing life. At 11-year-old, you were able to solve Rubik's Cube, which I remember my time, I couldn't even hold it. I said, what the heck is that? How do you do this? I even took the pieces out and tried to put it together, by the way. That's my story. And I'm an engineer.
Very kind of you to say, I think about my life as I'm just getting started. So I think I always tell myself, how do I get from good to great? And so that's the journey I'm on personally.
Beautiful.
And I have a long way to go. I have a long way to go, but I have time on my side. I'm going to keep going for the next 20, 25 years, trying to become great. What are the lessons I've learned along the way? I mean, it's a great question. I would say there's three things three pieces of advice I would give. I think the first and foremost is personal health. I mean, you and I have talked a lot about this. If I could replay life again, I would spend way more time on my health and fitness than I did in the last 25 years.
Yeah, you could do 50 push-ups. So we have to bring you back to
we got to do push-ups. We got to do a push-up competition.
All right, we'll do it. Next show, we'll start with a push-up.
So I think that's one. I think lesson learned is health matters. I think lesson two is focus on the future. Ignore the past. History does repeat itself, but with a new twist. And I think way too many people are bogged down by their own history, their own past, or other people's history. I'm always focused on tomorrow. Yesterday is over. Today is almost over. So that would be my second lesson, the focus on the future. And the third thing is, I watched a TV show 40 years ago as a kid. And I don't even remember the name of the show, but there's a line I remember, which I remind myself every single day. No chance, no dance. And it's about this notion that if it's about two teenagers and they're talking about, prom night. And if you don't take a chance, you're not going to get a dance. And I never took that risk. I never had prom night growing up where I did in India. But if you don't take a chance, you don't get the dance.
It applies to everything in our life.
It applies to everything in life. And to take a chance.
I mean, look at even the IIT show we did.
We all have to have the willingness to do whatever it takes to succeed without knowing what it will take.
What will it take?
If you know what it'll take, if you can quantify what it takes, then you can quantify risk.
Yeah.
That's not an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur says, I don't know what it will take, but I will do whatever it takes. And that's the definition of entrepreneur. It's also the definition of crazy.
Mavericks.
I like the word mavericks.
Crazy with brain.
Yeah.
So that's great. I definitely see tremendous value, and I'm sure our audience are enjoying our show. Ira, do we have any question for our audience you want to ask? Before, I have tons of questions for Ashu, but I want to give a chance to our audience. Hey, we have Yogi Chuk, and he's asking us a question. What is new normal? That's a good question, Ashu. That's a good one.
I think the new normal would be a hybrid. I think I think this world of remote, I think this world of collaboration across without borders, this world of Zoom is here to stay. But I also think human beings are social animals. And we, for deep collaboration, for personal relationship building, we need face-to-face. The reason you and I, Sanjiv, can do this on Zoom is because we did it, a year ago, sitting at my bar counter in my backyard.
Exactly.
Without that bar counter, we couldn't have this conversation this way.
No way, no way.
And so I think the new normal is a hybrid.
And what is one thing, and this is a tough one, Ashu, when you invest in any team and any company or any idea, what is one thing you look for? Because there are a million things.
Yeah, there's a million things.
But there is one thing which is like laws of physics you don't defy.
So it's a great question. So first of all, I focus on the founder more than anything else. It doesn't matter how good the idea is. If I don't fall in love with the founder, I don't invest. But then the obvious follow-on question is, so what makes you fall in love with the founder? And to me, it is the intensity of their commitment to do whatever it takes to succeed.
Ah, that's beautiful.
It is that intensity. It is, what are you willing to give up to succeed? Without knowing what you may have to give up. Like that's, and so I look for that. I look for that chip on a shoulder to win. And it doesn't matter whether you don't have a dollar in your pocket, or I have founders who have $400 or $500 million in the bank.
Yeah.
The ones that I want to bet on, irrespective of their bank balance, are willing to do whatever it takes to win.
So the way, Ashu, I say the same thing is, I'm not investing at foundation capital level, but passion with conviction. Because passion is great, but if you don't have conviction, then we don't know.
Yeah.
But when you are fully into it, it's going to happen no matter what.
I agree. I think that's a great phrase. Passion with conviction. I will use that.
Absolutely. And for our audience, if you want to read about what Ashu writes, he's a prolific writer, amazing articles he has written. Please check their website, foundationcapital.com. He has written so many thought-provoking topics. You may or may not agree with that. Do check that. So Ashu, that brings to almost to the end of our show. We always talk about future. And we always talk about future as something, this big thing and this new thing. And we look back, you and me, 25 years ago, nothing existed. None of these things existed, which we are enjoying and using today, whether it's Amazon at this level or what. Let's talk about 2050. Do you have any predictions for 2050? I know it's a tough question. We don't know.
Do I have any predictions for 2050?
How will our life be in 2050?
I know it'll be better. You and I will be a little older.
A little. I'm going to buy a winery, so you keep visiting me. There is no other way I can get you.
I think in 2050, we will be living in a world where hopefully we take freedom of speech and freedom of association for granted. I think, unfortunately, we're in a time in society where our freedom of speech and freedom of association is more threatened than it has been in the last 50 years. So I am hopeful that we're at a local low and we will dramatically better on those dimensions. I think freedom of mobility will change dramatically in the next 30 years. So whether it is in terms of air flight or helicopters or drones or self-driving cars, the ability to live in Vegas and come to San Francisco for an hour-long meeting, the ability to live in the middle of the desert and show up, in Vegas for a meeting, the ability to travel from India to here in 6 hours, I think all of those things will be more true 30 years from now than they are. Hopefully 30 years from now, you and I will celebrate my birthday on the moon. And in 50 years,
Absolutely.
on Mars, I think we will all have travel in mobility will be universal. I also hope 50 years from now, opportunity will be more universal than it is today. I think today, one of the things that gives me pause is the constraints on opportunity globally. And hopefully that will change.
Now, our world is going to be more unified than it is. We all saw what happened in COVID. We all came together, every single kind of organization, whether it's government, nonprofit, common, civilian, everyone, we all united, even the competitors, and we built and we are building a better world. That's going to happen. I'm not sure how countries and the countries' boundaries will change or shrink, because it is going to be an interesting topic, maybe for our next conversation. I want to thank, big thanks to you, Ashu. Thank you very much for taking our time. I want to big thank our listeners, because without you, there is no show. Please do share your comments and suggestions. I am on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, all the places. And Ashu is only on LinkedIn, so you can look him up. Great post he has, but do check his website. I also want to thank Radio Zindagi for giving me this opportunity. Thank you very much, Radio Zindagi. I'm so excited, and I'm looking forward to have this show next week. And I'm going to bring another phenomenal futurist. His name is Sridhar Iyengar, and he built a company called Misfit.
Wow.
So he's going to be on the show, and we'll talk about Misfit and what kind of Misfit entrepreneurs are and futurists are. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sanjiv. Thank you, Radio Zindagi. And I look forward to tuning in to listen to the next week's show.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.